Hi, everybody. How are you? I hope you were all well. Sorry about that. I was going live and then I had something else that got my attention. So I apologize. I'll have to go in and cut the first. No, power's good, Bebop. The phone rang and I had another problem I had to deal with. So sorry about that. So I hope everybody is doing well. I'm Jules of Thought, and today is Wednesday, September the 15th. It's hump day. Woo, 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 woo. And so tomorrow's Thursday, and then thank God it will soon be Friday. And this Friday, Judge Murphy will speak. All right. So we'll see what ends up happening with Barry Morphew coming this Thursday. I mean, this Friday. Um, Court is supposed to start at 1:30 Colorado time, Central Mountain. Um, and so I have a friend who will be in the courtroom. And so hopefully, I'm hoping that she will be able to join me live Friday night. And then I think AK is going to try to join us as well if he's got cell phone signal, because he spends most weekends in the mountains, I think. So he's going to try to have cell phone signal. So Friday night should be fun. Okay, now then. Well, it's going to be fun if they don't let Barry walk. If Barry walks, it's not going to be fun. If Barry walks, it's going to be a little freaky, but we'll deal with that problem when it gets there. But the live tonight is about Gabbi, Pertito, and Brian Laundrie. I don't know how much you guys have been following the case. I don't know how much you've caught up, but my goodness, there has been a lot of news just sort of rolling out, and it's being overshadowed by the Murdaugh case, because that Murdaugh case is just like something crazy out of, True Crime Magazine or something. It's a mess and a half. So, but this deal with Gabbi and Brian, it deserves attention. It is the kind of case that I think that getting some social media attention may end up being instrumental in getting some idea about where this young couple last was. If nothing else, it can bring attention, and maybe someone will recognize, oh, wait a minute, I saw them. Yeah, I was getting gas. I was in, wherever, Hot Springs, and there they were. So this is a good case to have out discussing and keeping up with it. The Murdaugh case is going to be covered by everybody just because of who those people are. But this thing with Gabbi, it's really kind of gotten, taken a hold to my heart. And, I feel so badly for her family. This is one of those situations where Brian Laundrie may not be speaking to the police, but we know that he's active online. And there are ways to know that he's active online, even though he may not be posting anything. He's active. That tells me he's also looking for news and information about himself and his situation. So, Brian, I have no doubt that you're going to find this video. Just because your attorney tells you that it's your right to keep your mouth shut, it doesn't mean you should keep your mouth shut. There is a higher moral authority. And given the specifics of this case only, I don't mean it in general. I don't mean it as like a constitutional right. I'm talking about with your situation with Gabbi, the exact facts as your lives from July onward unfolded. You've got to tell her family, or at least tell the police, her last known location. Now, your attorney put out another press release today, another statement saying that when a loved one goes missing, most often it is the partner that people look at and investigate, and that he believes that to be true where you're concerned. The problem is, though, is that there are really some legitimate circumstances that maybe you did not hurt her. I mean, if there are people that, follow along with this whole true crime thing all the time and watch these cases unfold, and you've got a group of fairly knowledgeable people looking at this and going, hey, wait a minute, there's a really good possibility he did not hurt her. But if you are not at least telling the police the last known location, and then her body shows up dead, things are going to look really bleak for you. At the very least, you could go ahead and tell your story and tell where the last place was that you saw her, in the very least. And here's why I say that. You're no Barry Morphew, Barry Morphew can disappear into the backwoods and never see another human being again, and he would be safe and fat and well-nourished and happy as a clam. That's not who you are. You grew up in the lap of luxury. You grew up with affluence. You are used to having all the comforts of the world, including your nice, mattress. You're not Barry. You don't know how to get rid of a body. Gabbi will be found. This is going to be one of those circumstances where she will be found. So if you didn't have anything to do with it, you really need to talk to the police and tell them what happened and where it was. Because when her body is found, there won't be any room at that point then for telling your story. All right. Now then, couple of things I've been hearing that are inaccurate, so I do want to clear those up. The first thing is that some people are saying that Gabbi had not known Brian very long, that he was from Florida and she was from New York, and that they had recently met and she came down, to see him before they took off. That is absolutely incorrect. They have known each other for quite some time. They attended the same high school. They've been friends a long time. So they began dating March of 2019. So that's more than 2 years. I don't know where this story is coming from that they haven't known each other. No, they did know each other. And her family, multiple members, at least 4 members of the family, are speaking out, and they're all being asked the same question. And the answer is no, we had no red flags. He's well accepted, loved. He's a great guy. We don't have any trouble with him. So there was no concern about him at all. There's no temper, nothing. Now he's an artist, okay? And I did find a lot of his work online. On his Instagram account, he's got a lot of drawings and paintings and stuff. And so you do go and look at that, and he's very good, right? He's very good. But the drawings have an undertone. They're kind of dark, right? They're kind of, they suggest the tortured spirit kind of thing, right? And some of them even have kind of a violent tone. There's no like notable violence. It's not like 2 people fighting, nothing like that. It's the motivation or the spirit behind the drawing that it's the feeling of the drawing. And so, there's a little bit that would suggest it. Also, his social media post, he's fairly verbose. He speaks with a lot of adjectives and adverbs. He's quite eloquent and poetic when he speaks, even about things that are rather mundane, as opposed to Gabby, whose social media posts are much shorter and relaxed and sort of straight to the point, right? They're I would say developmentally appropriate for her age and gender. They're kind of what you would expect. There's emojis that are used, that kind of thing. But not Brian's. Brian is he's sort of like an old soul. And so that kind of comes through in his writing, even just normal social media posts. He talks a lot about the human condition. People are not people are destructive. People leave trash or whatever, but he speaks about it in a poetic, manner. So so there's a few things that are a little, you know nothing that jumps up and says this guy's having serious mental health problems, nothing like that. But a few things that you just get a feel for it, that he may have been somewhat, tortured. Maybe there was some depression. Maybe it had some type of bullying or trauma. It's not, something there. All right, now then. So let me go through this timeline, because it matters in this case. And the reason that the timeline will end up being so important is because Brian isn't speaking. He is refusing to tell the police the last known location. And to me, that is just unforgivable. They're somewhere between Moab, Utah, and the Grand Tetons. Well, actually, possibly even on their way to Yellowstone. And that's just simply way too much ground to cover. I mean, you'll never identify a location to search with that wide of a area. And what, I talked about this before. Last month, we were talking about it, that there's this emerging pattern with these criminals. There's this emerging pattern where they try to put as much time in between the crime and when it gets reported to police. Barry Morphew did it, right? It's like if you can put as much time in between as possible, then you have less chance of there being clues that evidence that can be gathered. Well, in the case of Brian, and I'm not saying he has, if he is responsible for what happened, wow, he's got a good at least 2, maybe 3 to 4, well, maybe 3 to 4 weeks. For sure, he's got 2 good weeks. I would contend 3 weeks. My friend would say, no, you're wrong. Okay, because he believes that the sighting of her, well, I'll go through it in a minute. But he's got at least 2 weeks, and it's possible 3 or 4. He just didn't tell anyone. He just drove away. It's the most mind-boggling thing imaginable. It's crazy. All right, now then, so let's go through it. They got engaged in July 2020. Now we go to July the 4th, 2021, okay? Now, the first place that we get information about as they're on their trip out to the great, south northwest is July the 4th. They get to Monument Rocks. And Brian leaves a social media post with some photographs. They stay there 2 days, and then they head on up to Colorado Springs. Again, photographs and an Instagram post. Then after they finish at Colorado Springs on the 9th of July, guess where they go? They go to Crestone. Yeah, the Great Sand Dunes, the same place that Chris Watt and Nicole Kessinger camped. Same location. They ended up staying there for quite some time, about 5-6 days. And then they left from there. And they've got video. They got video and photographs and whatnot. And it's so reminiscent of Kessinger and Watts that it is eerie. If you were here during the Watts case, it's pretty eerie to watch. It really is. I mean, is the Great Sand Dunes, are they haunted? Like, are people getting possessed by evil spirits? I don't know. I don't believe in that sort of thing, but some people do. All right. So finally, they arrive at Zion National Park on July the 16th, about a month ago, about 4 weeks ago. Again, every single day, there are photographs posted online. There are social media posts. There is music downloaded. These kids were active on their social media thing. Okay? So on the 16th, they spent the night at Zion. And on the 17th of July, they spent the night at Zion. And then on the 18th, they were at they had another night at Zion, and then on the 20th, they had left and they had gone to the Cedar Breaks. And finally, they were in Bryce Canyon on July 21st. All right. They liked Bryce Canyon, and then they went to the Mystic Hot Springs, stayed there the night of the 26th and then the 27th. And then on July the 28th, something important happened. And I think it's important to the investigation. They put up a website. They created a website for their travels, right? Well, to me, that really is important because it suggests that they were not having trouble. They were not considering ending their relationship. And that was as late as the end of July, right? So they're not having weeks of trouble. Every day they're putting up Instagram photographs, they're putting up posts, life's great and happy, they're showing everything they're doing, they're active, they're hiking, they're camping, they're cooking outside. I mean, they're having a great time. They're being young people enjoying being alive. And so then they end up on 7/28, they started their website. That tells me things are okay. They're looking at the future, right? On the 29th, they arrived in Canyonlands National Park, and there was photographs of the Mesa Arch. He also left a review on the website, thedirt.com, and they spent the night on the night of the 29th, the 30th, and 31st. And then on the 31st, something new happened that doesn't look like it had happened before. And that was that Brian added some songs to her Spotify. So at least in this particular case, we know that he has access to her Spotify. He's got her password or whatnot, right? And that would sort of make you think maybe he's got password to other things too. So he's got the password to Spotify. So that was on 7/31. And then things got very quiet until August the 12th. They're at Arches National Park. Now, August the 12th is an interesting day. They go out to the park that morning, and they go hiking, and they're enjoying it, and it's beautiful, but they're having so much fun. They don't want to leave. There's a lot of people there. And so they decide to hike down behind one of the big arches to try to get to an area off the beaten path so that they can be away from where all the people are and they can kind of enjoy being with Mother Nature, right? So they both of them talk about that it's a pretty precarious, pretty gnarly hike. Very steep incline, um, all rock. It's not for a new hiker. It's for somebody that's confident, in good shape, and all that. But they end up making this hike and they do it and they get through with no trouble and they end up almost like being gifted by Mother Nature, this spectacular, beautiful view. They're alone. There's no other people around, and so he's a very good hiker. He also climbs, and so he actually goes further down the rock, which is very, very steep. He goes further down, and they spend some time taking photographs of each other. He's looking up, taking pictures of her with the arch behind her, and she's looking down, taking photographs of him down this what looks like to be like a cliff. And then after they play and they have all this fun, then they end up just sitting back and chilling and they begin to draw, right? So they're drawing. They're really enjoying the day. There's no trouble. They're relaxed. They're at home in nature. They don't have anywhere else they want to be. They don't have anything else on their mind. They're calm. No one's manic. No one's upset or anxious. It's just a good day. Now, they know that this is accurate reporting because there were a couple of people that wandered back over to where they were. And those people were just like, oh my God, how did y'all get there? And one guy tried to get where they were and he ended up getting stuck. And Brian actually went over and helped him get back to where his wife was. And his wife was laughing at him because he got stuck and he had to have this young kid, come help him. But so there were witnesses. There were people that actually saw them. So this was on the 12th. Well, at some point in the afternoon, they end up leaving, right? And the next thing we hear is that there is a phone call made by someone for a domestic violence problem. When the cops arrive to the van, she is inconsolable. She is sobbing and crying. She can't quit crying. She's rubbing her legs and she's completely freaked out. Now, he tells a story about their mental illness. Well, there's my first red flag, right? He tells a story about their mental illness, that they both have trouble. Hers is worse than his, yada, yada, yada. And that all the time they've been spending together in the van, that they've been arguing for about a month or more, and that it's just getting worse. And that he was trying to leave and give her some space so she could calm down, but she didn't want him to leave. And so she began to hit him. It's a story that I can see it happening with some very specific types of people, but because we don't know anything about Gabbi, I think it's unlikely. It could be, it could. I'm not saying that it didn't, but that's the first sign that we get of there being a problem. And once I learned and really went into depth on what it was like the morning of the 12th when they were at the big arch, I thought, why? Why would they go from having this relaxed, calm day, no mania, nobody cycling? Why would they go through that to a situation where he locked her out of the van? There was an eyewitness. He locked her out and she ends up running around to the front and literally jumps in through the window back into the van and gets access to the inside of the van. I mean, it was an out of control situation. So the cops respond and they listen to both sides of the story. The story being told, the only thing that they could make out was that they were fighting over a cell phone. That's it. No clarification. Just something happened with the cell phone and it blew everything up. Now that leads me to wonder, was it a secret cell phone? Was he calling, texting, talking to other women? Or was it her cell phone and she was talking to other men? You don't know. Nobody knows. Don't know. But something substantial happened to interfere with a day that just hours before had been remarkable. A gift. Something happened. The cops determined that the situation did not rise to the level of criminal activity, domestic violence, but that it was instead a mental health crisis. And so their answer, this is going to make y'all mad, their answer was to separate the young couple and give them a little time to have some time out. Yeah. But he notes in his police report that the entire time that he was there, the young girl never stopped crying. She never stopped rubbing her legs, rubbing her knees, and she was wiping her eyes and her nose the whole time, the entire time. I don't understand why she wasn't taken to a hospital. So they got a hotel room for him for the night. She stayed with her van for the night of the 12th. And then we assumed that they were rejoined on the 13th and all was well, right? The next time that we get a post, it is the YouTube video that is on her YouTube channel now. It was uploaded on August 19th. So it was a week after this beautiful, wonderful day followed by hell. There's nothing else that comes out for a week. And the next thing that comes up is a highly edited YouTube video is uploaded. It's not just video that they were taking. It's edited. It's a really great production. That was on the 19th. And then there was also some Instagram that was put up. On the 21st, the website was updated. Now notice, you've got every single day throughout July, photograph, social media post, oh, music, all this constant, the whole month of July, on. Then we get to the disaster of August 12th and August 13th, and now we're quiet. It all stops. The music almost stopped. There's a little bit of music uploaded, but not like it had been. And then on the 19th, a week after Moab, where this disaster happened, on the 19th, the highly edited YouTube video was put up. On the 21st, their website was updated. And then on the 24th, the dad of Gabbi gets a weird phone call. She calls him and she's talking, and she asked him to order her some food and pay for it through like Uber Eats or Grubhub or something like that, which he does. He orders her some food, has it delivered to a hotel. She's at a hotel. That's the night of the 24th. And the dad is a little, he felt a little ill at ease, not because there were any big red warning signs, but it just was different. It was just off. But otherwise, it just seemed okay. Supposedly, someone who looked like Brian was seen checking out of a Salt Lake City hotel with a blonde girl that looked like Gabbi. So we know on the 24th she's alive, but they're in a hotel in Salt Lake City asking him to order food for her. It's just something's getting uncomfortable, right? The next day, there's a phone call to her mom, and she says, we're in Grand Teton. And then she says to her mom that she doesn't know if the relationship is going to work out. Now, in the police report, remember, he tells them that they've been arguing and fighting for a month because they both have mental illness, anxiety, and whatnot, right? But they put up a website. They started a website and they updated the website. And up until the 12th, they were perfectly happy. So there's some weird things happening now. After Moab, after what took place the 12th and the 13th, it all changed like night and day. So something profound happened with the cell phone. The last text was on the 30th, and it said no service in Yellowstone. The mother and the father are on record saying they don't have any confidence in the timeline, that even though they spoke with her on the 25th, they don't know if that was actually her on the 27th, and they don't know if that was actually her on the 30th. Something was said about the text was too, that it didn't seem like her style. So is that just focusing in, looking for clue, kind of the confirmation bias problem, or did she recognize that, hey, that's not the way she talks on text? So sometime between the 25th and the 30th, or actually I'm wrong, sometime between the 25th and September 11th, that's when it all went to hell in a handbasket. But I contend, just judging by their own behavior, the change happened over 8/12 and 8/13. That was it. That was the dramatic change in behavior for both of them. Totally changed. Now then, so 8/27 supposedly 8/30 no service in Yellowstone. And then the van was taken into custody on 9/11. Now listen to this. The van had been there 10 days. 10 days. So essentially the van got there September 1st, but there's a text on 8/30 saying no service in Yellowstone. That would mean that he drove 23 hours without stopping to get home. crazy, isn't it? So, Brian, I know you're listening. That you've got a real problem with your timeline, and it's not going to be easily fixed. So you better start helping the cops. You better start helping Gabby's family if you have any hopes of salvaging anything out of this. Things are not looking good for you, bro. All right. Finally, on 9/14, which was yesterday, there was a subpoena served, and that is for his TikTok. So they're after you, Brian. They're on your tail, big guy. It's time to take a deep breath and do the right thing, right? All right. All right. It's actually over 30 hours. Oh, he would have been driving more than 30 hours from. Okay. I didn't put it on my Google Maps. I was going by the timeline. So right there, AP, the timeline is blown to hell, right? Right there. If Google Maps would say 30 hours. Well, yeah, I guess that's right, because it's like 18 or 19 hours. Yeah. So from Houston to like Aspen, you're talking about 19 hours. And from Houston down to Florida, you're talking about, maybe, depending on where you're going, 12 hours. So right there, you're at 30 hours. And you hadn't even gone up north of Colorado, right? So thank you, AP. Yeah, AP's absolutely correct. Yep. All right. The YouTube video when she is making yogurt and he says, be careful when she was putting the granola on her yogurt. Do you think the chocolate was weed edibles? Oh, well, first of all, who knows? I can't say yes or no. But I also know that, it's Colorado. They had been in Colorado and it's legal. They limit how much you can buy. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. "10 days, Cinnamon Hot. 10 days, Brian take out the laundry, went home, and began downloading the most bizarre MK Ultra music ever. It's weird music, Brian. Like, it's a poor reflection on what's happening in your psyche. You need to get to a psychiatrist. Sincerely. And he did not alert anyone. That van stayed right there for 10 days. He did not tell anyone. Isn't that something? It's just mind-blowing. But if you heard the music that he downloaded, you'd kind of be thinking, oh, okay, something's going on with old Bry. It's weird music. I feel this may be much more complicated than we know. I don't feel Brian should be accused of murder before more proof comes out. It may have been self-defense. We just don't know yet. Dana Yeager, 100% agree. And I don't know if you were in here at the time, but I had said earlier, me and my friend, we believe that there is a absolute possibility, a good possibility, that Brian had nothing to do with what happened to her. There is an explanation that would not reflect badly on Brian. That is absolutely true, Dana. And that's one of the I don't normally talk to the subjects of the story. But in this case, I feel like, is he getting the best legal advice? I know he's getting the standard legal advice, right? Keep your mouth shut. But is that the best case? Is that the best situation, considering he may be innocent. I mean, this may be one of our few cases that's come along where the guy's truly innocent, but completely shutting down and refusing to tell them her last known location. At the very least, at least tell them the last known location, nothing else, just where she was, so that they can at least narrow down where they're looking for her, right? I mean, how many times have we heard the act wasn't the crime, it was the cover up that got you? You know, that may end up happening to Brian, that he is innocent of creating and causing the harm, but because he's taking these extraordinary steps to cover it up, that's going to be the real thing that harms him. Where is Gabbi? Where is Brian? Well, Brian is at home with mommy and daddy after driving Gabbi's van back more than 30 hours from Wyoming. And Gabbi is lost somewhere between Utah and Wyoming. They don't think self-defense is an option. That's already been discussed, Dana and Sarver House. The cops in their police report, they talk about the fact that she is very slight. She's 5'4", weighs 110 pounds. That's tiny, really, very small. And then he is much bigger, much healthier, stronger. No, not self-defense. They already wrote that up in the police report. I cannot say that, Shelley Torbett. He is a person of interest officially, Chihuahua Dawson. Officially, they have come out and said he is a person of interest. And that's why his attorney put out another statement today. He said, we know he's a person of interest. He's always been a person of interest. And that doesn't change what we're doing, which is nothing. He's going to keep his mouth shut. Now, be careful, Chihuahua Dawson, about shutting off avenues of thought early. You can't do that. You got to keep an open mind while there's still information being gathered. Her phone and his necklace. AP, tell me about his necklace. Why did you bring up his necklace? I know about the phone. Hey, BZ. So cute, BZ. So filled with life and just giggly and just delightful, right? Well, I think it would be short-sighted to ignore that, Carrie. Carrie asked, do you think there may be a connection to the female couple that were murdered? Yeah, I think it would be short-sighted to just rule that out. Just like I say, it's short-sighted to rule out potential suicide. I think early on, or an accident, right? Yeah. I mean, by her own words, they were hiking in a precarious location that could have been dangerous. And she was right there with him. So it could also have been accidental. There's no question. I mean, there's a lot of potential explanations. The couple that were found murdered, they were last seen in Moab, and they were at Woody's Bar and Grill on August the 12th. So we know that both this young couple and Gabbi and Brian were both in Moab on the 12th and 13th. So is it connected? Who knows? The cops are surely looking into it. Who knows? Moab is only 5,000 people. They met. It was missing in all his Instagram pictures regarding the days in question. An earthy guy tends to wear the same jewelry day in and day out. So you think it got broken, maybe in a an argument or whatever? I only meant self-defense if she had a weapon. Someone in psychosis can be very dangerous with a weapon around. What would make you think she was experiencing psychosis? I don't think that there is any I don't think that so far there's any verification that Gabbi and or Brian went to Woody's Bar and Grill. We don't know that. We do know that they were there in Moab at the same time. We know that. Yeah, right, Mrs. Kurt. If it was an accident, the longer he stays silent, the worse it is for him. And that's what I keep thinking. The fact that he just left and made that straight drive home to mom and dad. He didn't even try to hide the van, and he's just laying in his house hiding out. That suggests to me that something took his control from him. He was put in some situation that was so far outside of what he had ever dealt with before. He did not have the resources to manage what was happening, and all he could think about was to get back to a safe place. That makes me think something something traumatizing happened to him. And if that is the case, then I don't think it's wise for him to act like he's trying to cover up his tracks now. He didn't try to cover up and hide the van. He just wanted to go home. He was freaked out by whatever happened. So I almost feel like, and I know what they say, and I've said before, if I ever had any kind of trouble, I would not open my mouth to the cops for nothing. Um, but in this very specific one case, these circumstances, it certainly looks like to me that he would at least want to help her family, right? Just all you got to do is just say her last known location, nothing else. Just give them a place to start the search. I personally don't believe they ever made it to Yellowstone, and I question the whole Grand Teton thing. Now, my friend does not. So, there's a lot of disagreement about what's come out so far. Um, that's why I'm going to remind you again, don't close your mind off to different avenues, potentialities. Otherwise, you get sucked in to the big mistake of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is one of the worst things that can happen to you if you're like a researcher or an investigator. You don't want to go in with any pre predetermined outcome. You don't want to be one of those researchers writing your results section before you've ever analyzed your data. Um, you want to collect the data, and then you want to be very relaxed and sit back and let the numbers talk to you. Collect your knowledge, collect your data from people, and put it in the computer. And then whatever the results are what tell the story, not what you want it to be. not how you want it to turn out. So we got to be it's the same process in something like, criminal behavior. Um, you have to just take an inventory of the facts in the beginning. And then once you feel like you've got as many facts as you're ever going to collect, at that point, then you got to let it tell a story. Give me a minute. If you can hear me, put a 1. All right, very good. Sorry about that. I got knocked off StreamYards. I'm not sure what that was about. It's very, very odd. So you can see even my, all my OBS stuff got messed up too. So anyway, it's a good thing, I guess, that I was done, right? I've seen a lot of strange cases lately where someone had undiagnosed bipolar or manic depression and ended up going psychotic from alcohol or even a certain food. They lose all sense of reality. And there's been some marijuana products too that have been, I guess, maybe a little bit too strong for people that are not used to THC and have ended up in the emergency room because they were just, freaking out. So I don't discount any of that to be true. A lot of people don't know that with bipolar, you can have a brief psychotic episode. You can have mania that is if it's bad enough, it can result in psychosis, but hallucinations, visual hallucinations, things like that. So yeah, well, I don't know that it would be with fentanyl, Carrie, because they were in Colorado. They would have no reason to need to buy it off the street. They could buy it safely, through a dispensary. I would only speak to the police if there was a chance the other person might need help, if the other person was still alive. That's a good point, Lena. Yeah, yeah. And for now, it's all speculation. Of course, absolutely. Which is the whole reason why I was saying we can't foreclose on a theory. We've only just begun to get information, right? Even though the young lady seems to have been missing for quite some time, they only got a subpoena yesterday. So the parents didn't even discover the van until the 11th, which was 4 days ago. So truly, this is way too new to think about, coming up with a theory at this point. Right now, it's just sitting back and accepting the information that's gathered. Eventually, the story will emerge. It will. But not if you close your thoughts off to a preferred theory. You just can't allow yourself to do that. Oh my God, I want so badly to believe it was accident during a fight. I have 3 sons and could see them running to me, freaked out. They always do, or little things. Exactly, Carol. And how else would you characterize a young man that's traveling, used to being away from home, has no trouble, being away, but something happens and he drives more than 30 straight hours without stopping, without sleep. And then when he gets to the house, he stays locked in his bedroom. How else do you describe it? I mean, he was freaked out. Something happened. Something freaked him out. And remember, whatever it was something that happened. It started the August 12th and 13th in Moab, because that was the time frame where there was a dramatic change in behavior, both his and hers. And then within 2 weeks, she's gone. Within a week, really. But for that one hotel citing would make it actually 2 weeks. So it's something happened. And the only thing they said to the police, it had something to do with the cell phone, which leads me to believe one of them read something or saw something on the cell phone, right? That started the whole ball rolling. She's so young and seemed to prefer holistic methods over being on medication. Undiagnosed as possible. All speculation, of course. And look, Dana, many people have kind of grown accustomed to the word bipolar. It's sort of like the new depression, right? Everybody's got it, kind of. In truth, bipolar is a serious mental illness. Serious. What the mania, most people learn or characterize, they think about mania as a person who's like overly happy, right? Well, that's not actually true. There may be some people that exhibit, euphoria and a false sense of well-being and all of that during their mania, but that's not the standard. The standard is that the mania is experienced as high anxiety, anger, frustration, right? So it's a little bit of a, it's poorly conceived to believe that bipolar is only very, very down and depressed or very, very up and happy. The bipolar function has nothing really to do with whether you're happy or sad. The bipolar function has to do with the energy level that is being created in your body. So that's where that comes from. If it is true that I don't have any way of knowing if she had any diagnoses. The only reason I'm talking about it is because it was mentioned in the actual police report, that Brian said, we have this condition. So I don't know. I unless her family comes out and says that she was dealing with these symptoms, I'm going to choose to sort of stay on the fence. We don't know what he was telling the cops or why. We don't know what was happening at the time. It was obviously things were out of control. We don't really know. I mean, come on. I don't know how many people. We got 123 people. 1, 2, 3. We've got 123 people in here tonight. Someone in here has experienced learning about infidelity in your marriage, right? I mean, so out of 120 something people, at least, probably 5, 10 of you at some point, were you calm? Right? Were you calm saying, "Oh, honey, I wish you didn't have a little friend. I don't think that that's appropriate for you to have a little friend to go spend, the afternoon with. I just don't think that that's very helpful to our family, unit." Is that how you responded? Or did you respond like, I'm going to kick your ass, right? So never, for all my friends and everybody that I've ever known that discovered infidelity, it's a trauma. It's a chaotic mess. There is fury and anger and broken hearts and depression like you've never seen. Am I right or wrong? So we don't know what happened, but we know that something occurred with the cell phone that caused both of them to break down. So we don't know what it was, but there's some potentials, right? It's possible he could have been flirting with someone. It's possible she could have been flirting with someone. It's possible. We don't know. And they were young, and they didn't have any guidance, and they'd been together way too much. That's something that I've said in the past when I've watched some of these YouTubers. They're a young couple. They travel around together in a camper or whatever. I've said before to my daughter, don't they get sick of each other? Like, they're always smiling and they're always so happy and being so, carefree. But they're also human beings, right? And we